Sarah Martinez had always been different from the other girls in her small Texas town. While her classmates painted their nails and talked about boys, she spent her afternoons at the local gym, lifting weights and running on the treadmill until her lungs burned. Her mother, Maria, often worried about her daughter's intense focus on physical fitness, but Sarah had dreams that seemed impossible for a girl from their working-class neighborhood. The mockery started in high school. Sarah had announced during lunch that she planned to join the military after graduation, specifically aiming for the Navy SEALs. The cafeteria erupted in laughter. Jake Morrison, the star quarterback, stood up and pointed at her with his chicken nugget. "Try not to cry, Queen," he sneered, using the nickname he'd given her because of her last name's similarity to royalty. SEALs don't take girls, especially not ones who think they're tough. His girlfriend, Brittany, joined in with her high-pitched giggle. "Maybe she can be a secretary for them instead," she suggested, causing another wave of laughter to ripple through the cafeteria. Sarah felt her face burn with embarrassment, but she kept her chin up. She had learned early in life that showing weakness only invited more attacks. The harassment continued throughout her senior year. Every time Sarah mentioned her military aspirations, someone would remind her of her place. The guidance counselor, Mrs. Peterson, even pulled her aside one day to suggest she consider more realistic options, like nursing or teaching. "Women in combat roles face unique challenges," she said with what she probably thought was kindness. "Perhaps you should think about supporting our troops from behind the lines." Sarah's father, Roberto, had served in the army during the Gulf War, and he was the only person who took her seriously. Every evening, after his shift at the construction site, he would meet her at the gym. He taught her everything he knew about military discipline, physical conditioning, and mental toughness. "The military will test everything you think you know about yourself," he told her one evening as they finished their workout. "But if you're determined enough, if you want it more than you want to breathe, then nothing can stop you." Also 40/24 zing. Despite the constant doubt from others, Sarah maintained perfect grades while training her body to its limits. She woke up at 5 every morning to run 5 miles before school. After classes, she would head to the gym for strength training. Then, spend her evenings studying military history and tactics. Her weekends were devoted to rock climbing, swimming, and martial arts classes that she paid for with her part-time job at the local diner. The other students couldn't understand her dedication. They saw her discipline as obsession, her goals as delusion. During prom season, while everyone else was shopping for dresses and planning after-parties, Sarah was researching military recruiting offices and preparing for the ASVAB test. The contrast made her an even bigger target for ridicule. "Look at G.I. Jane over there," Jake would say whenever he saw her in the hallway. "Still planning to play, soldier?" His friends would laugh and make exaggerated marching sounds as she passed. Sarah learned to tune them out, but each comment added fuel to the fire burning inside her. She kept a journal where she wrote down every insult, every doubt, every person who told her she couldn't make it. One day, she promised herself she would prove them all wrong. Her breaking point came during the senior class talent show. Sarah had planned to perform a demonstration of military-style obstacle course techniques she had been practicing. She had spent weeks setting up a challenging course in her backyard, timing herself as she crawled under barriers, climbed over walls, and navigated through tight spaces. When she took the stage, expecting at least polite attention, the audience began to laugh before she even started. "What's she going to do? Show us how to fold laundry?" Someone called out from the back. The laughter grew louder. Sarah stood frozen for a moment, looking out at the sea of mocking faces. Then something inside her snapped. Instead of performing her demonstration, she walked to the microphone. "You think this is funny now?" she said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "But one day, when you're all stuck in this town talking about your high school glory days, I'll be serving my country. And when that day comes, I won't be the one who needs to prove anything anymore." She walked off the stage to scattered applause and more laughter. That night, She submitted her application to join the Navy. Her recruiter, Petty Officer Williams, was impressed by her physical fitness scores and determination, but he also gave her a reality check. "The military is changing," he said, "but special operations is still a man's world. You'll face challenges that go beyond physical training. Are you prepared for that?" R. 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 Sarah nodded without hesitation. She had been preparing for those challenges her entire life. Every insult, every doubt, every person who had told her to lower her expectations had only made her more determined. She knew the path ahead would be difficult. But she also knew that she had something her critics didn't understand: an unbreakable will to succeed. Graduation day arrived with mixed emotions. While her classmates celebrated the end of their high school journey, Sarah saw it as the beginning of hers. As she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she could hear Jake and his friends making jokes about her upcoming vacation in the military. She smiled and waved at her parents in the audience, knowing that this was the last time she would have to endure the small-minded thinking of her hometown. 2 weeks after graduation, Sarah stood at the gates of Naval Station Great Lakes for basic training. As she looked at the imposing buildings and watched other recruits saying goodbye to their families, she felt a mixture of excitement and terror. This was it. The first step toward proving that a girl from a small Texas town could achieve something extraordinary. The night before she left for basic training, her father gave her a compass that had belonged to his father. "This will always point you toward home," he said. "But more importantly, it will remind you to stay true to your direction, no matter how many people try to convince you to take an easier path." Sarah clutched the compass tightly, knowing she would need that reminder in the difficult months ahead. Basic training at Naval Station Great Lakes proved to be both exactly what Sarah expected and completely different from anything she could have imagined. The physical demands were intense but manageable, thanks to her years of preparation. What caught her off guard was the psychological warfare that came with being one of only a handful of women in a male-dominated environment. Her drill instructor, Chief Petty Officer Jackson, was a mountain of a man who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan. He made it clear from day one that he didn't believe women belonged in combat roles. "Martinez," he would bark during morning formation, "drop and give me 50. Let's see if you can keep up with the real sailors." While the extra attention was unwelcome, Sarah used it as motivation. Every additional push-up, every extra mile she was forced to run, only made her stronger. Her bunkmate, Jessica Chen, came from a military family and had her own dreams of breaking barriers in the Navy. The two women formed a strong friendship based on mutual respect and shared determination. "They're trying to break us mentally," Jessica observed one evening after a particularly brutal day of training. "The physical stuff is just the beginning. They want to see if we'll crack under pressure." Jessica observed, "We'll crack under pressure." Sarah never cracked. When other recruits complained about the heat during summer training exercises, she pushed through without a word. When they were forced to crawl through mud during obstacle courses while drill instructors screamed insults, she emerged with a smile. Her fellow recruits began to take notice. Some respected her determination, while others resented the extra attention she brought to their unit. The real test came during Hell Week, a 7-day period designed to push recruits to their absolute limits. Sleep deprivation, constant physical activity, and psychological pressure combined to create an environment where many recruits discovered their breaking point. Sarah had been preparing for this moment her entire life, but nothing could have truly prepared her for the reality. On the 3rd day, while navigating a particularly challenging obstacle course in freezing rain, Sarah watched as recruit after recruit dropped out. The course included rope climbing, wall scaling, and a grueling crawl through mud under barbed wire. By the time they reached the final obstacle, only half the original group remained. Sarah's hands were bleeding, her muscles screamed in protest, and her vision blurred from exhaustion, but she kept moving. Chief Jackson appeared beside her as she struggled to climb a 20-foot rope. "Give up, Martinez," he said quietly. "You've proven your point. No one expects you to finish this." Sarah looked down at him, rain streaming down her face, and continued climbing. When she reached the top and rang the bell, the satisfaction was unlike anything she had ever felt. But Hell Week was only the beginning. After basic training, Sarah applied for advanced combat training programs, each step bringing her closer to her ultimate goal of special operations. The Navy had recently opened certain combat roles to women, but the special operations community remained largely closed off. Sarah knew she was fighting against decades of tradition and institutional resistance. Her next challenge came at Naval Special Warfare Preparatory School, where she would train alongside candidates hoping to become Navy SEALs. The instructors made it clear that while she couldn't officially enter SEAL training due to policy restrictions at the time, they would allow her to participate in preparatory programs to see what she was made of. The physical demands at prep school were unlike anything Sarah had experienced. 20-mile runs in full gear, hours of treading water while carrying heavy equipment, and combat scenarios that tested both physical and mental limits became her daily routine. She was often the only woman in these exercises, making her both a curiosity and a target. Lieutenant Commander Richards, who oversaw the advanced training programs, watched Sarah's progress with interest. He had seen plenty of tough candidates over the years, but something about her determination reminded him of the most successful special operations personnel he had worked with. "Martinez has something special," he confided to his colleague. "She doesn't just want to prove she belongs here. She genuinely believes she does. That confidence is rare." During underwater demolition training, Sarah faced her greatest challenge yet. The exercise required candidates to swim underwater for extended periods while performing complex tasks, simulating real-world combat scenarios. Many experienced male candidates struggled with the mental pressure of being underwater while completing technical objectives under time constraints. Sarah approached the challenge methodically, using meditation techniques she had taught herself to control her breathing and manage anxiety. While other candidates panicked and surfaced early, she completed every underwater task with time to spare. Her performance caught the attention of instructors who had been skeptical about women in combat roles. The camaraderie among the candidates was complex. Some men welcomed Sarah as a teammate, impressed by her skills and determination. Others resented her presence, feeling that the military was changing too quickly and that standards were being lowered to accommodate women. Sarah learned to navigate these dynamics carefully, proving herself through actions rather than words. One evening, after a particularly challenging day of combat simulations, candidate Mark Stevens approached Sarah at the mess hall. Stevens was a former college football player who had initially been among her harshest critics. "I owe you an apology," he said, sitting down across from her. "I thought they were lowering standards to let women in. But you're outperforming half the guys in our class." Sarah appreciated the acknowledgement, but she knew that one person's change of heart didn't represent a broader shift in attitudes. She continued to face questioning looks, whispered doubts, and the constant pressure to prove that she deserved to be there. Each challenge only strengthened her resolve. Her opportunity to truly prove herself came during a joint training exercise with Marine units. The scenario involved a complex urban warfare simulation where Navy and Marine personnel had to work together to complete objectives under intense pressure. Sarah was assigned to a mixed unit that included several Marines who had never worked with women in combat roles before. The exercise took place in a realistic urban training environment, complete with buildings, vehicles, and simulated enemy forces. Teams had to navigate through the environment while under fire, coordinate complex tactical movements, and complete specific objectives within strict time limits. The physical demands were extreme, but the mental pressure was even more challenging. Sarah's unit was tasked with securing a building and extracting simulated hostages while under constant enemy fire. As they moved through the urban environment, her team leader, Marine Sergeant Rodriguez, began to doubt whether Sarah could handle the physical demands of carrying wounded personnel while under fire. When their medic was wounded during the simulation, Sarah volunteered to carry him to safety. The Marine was significantly larger than Sarah, and several team members questioned whether she could manage the task. Sarah hoisted the 200-pound Marine onto her shoulders and began moving toward the extraction point while bullets whined overhead. The distance to safety was over a quarter-mile through rough terrain, and Sarah had to maintain tactical awareness while carrying her heavy load. Her training kicked in, and she moved with purpose and determination. When they reached the extraction point, Sarah was exhausted but victorious. The Marines in her unit looked at her with new respect. That exercise marked a turning point in Sarah's military career. Word of her performance spread throughout the special operations community, and she began to receive opportunities that had previously been unavailable. While official barriers still prevented her from entering certain programs, informal networks of supporters began to open doors. 5 years had passed since Sarah left her small Texas hometown, and the transformation was remarkable. Now Petty Officer First Class Martinez, she had become one of the most respected combat specialists in her unit. Her reputation extended beyond the Navy into joint operations with other military branches, where her skills had earned recognition from the most elite warriors in the American military. The policies that had once barred women from special operations had evolved, and Sarah found herself among the first women selected for an experimental integrated special operations program. The training was conducted at a classified facility where Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Marine Force Reconnaissance, and Air Force Special Operations personnel trained together in advanced tactical operations. Her instructor team included some of the most decorated special operations veterans in the military, including Master Chief Thompson, a legendary Navy SEAL with over 20 years of experience in the most dangerous combat zones around the world. Thompson had initially been skeptical about the integration program, but Sarah's performance quickly changed his perspective. The advanced training program was designed to push elite warriors beyond their previous limits. Sleep deprivation, extreme physical challenges, and complex tactical scenarios created an environment where only the most determined candidates could succeed. Sarah found herself competing directly with special operations personnel who had already proven themselves in combat. The program's culminating exercise was a week-long survival and tactical assessment in a remote mountain environment. Teams were dropped into harsh terrain with minimal equipment and tasked with completing complex objectives while being hunted by opposing forces. The scenario was designed to test every aspect of special operations training: physical endurance, tactical thinking, leadership under pressure, and the ability to adapt to rapidly changing situations. Sarah was assigned to a team that included 3 Marine Force reconnaissance specialists, 2 Army Rangers, 1 Air Force pararescue operator, and 2 Navy SEALs. The team dynamics were complex, as each branch had different training backgrounds and tactical approaches. Sarah knew that her performance during this exercise would determine whether she would be accepted into the special operations community or remain forever on the outside. The exercise began before dawn in freezing mountain conditions. Teams had to navigate through treacherous terrain while avoiding detection by opposing forces, equipped with advanced surveillance technology. Sarah's team moved through the mountains with precision, using terrain to their advantage while maintaining communication discipline that prevented enemy forces from tracking their location. On the second day, while crossing a dangerous river during a snowstorm, one of the Marines slipped on wet rocks and injured his ankle severely. The team faced a critical decision: leave the injured Marine behind with basic supplies and continue the mission, or risk the entire team's success by carrying him through the remaining challenges. Sarah immediately volunteered to carry the injured Marine, despite the fact that he outweighed her by over 50 pounds. The other team members questioned whether she could handle the additional burden while maintaining the pace necessary to complete their objectives. Sarah strapped the Marine to her back using improvised gear and began the grueling march through mountain terrain. For the next 3 days, Sarah carried her injured teammate through some of the most challenging terrain in North America. Rocky cliff faces, dense forest, and river crossings tested her physical limits, while the team continued to face tactical challenges from opposing forces. Her teammates watched in amazement as she never complained, never asked for help, and never showed signs of giving up. The final challenge of the exercise required teams to assault a fortified position defended by instructors role-playing enemy forces. The scenario demanded perfect coordination, tactical precision, and physical courage. Sarah's team had to approach the target through open ground, while under simulated enemy fire, then scale walls and clear buildings room by room. During the assault, Sarah demonstrated the tactical skills she had developed through years of training. She moved with the fluid precision of an experienced warrior, providing covering fire for teammates while advancing on enemy positions. When the team encountered a locked door that required explosive breaching, Sarah volunteered for the dangerous task of placing charges while under fire. Her teammates watched as she sprinted across open ground while bullets cracked overhead, placed the explosive charges with steady hands despite the chaos around her, and then provided precise covering fire as the team advanced through the breach. The assault was completed flawlessly, with Sarah playing a crucial role in every phase of the operation. When the exercise concluded, Master Chief Thompson gathered all the participants for the final assessment. He looked directly at Sarah as he spoke to the group. "In 23 years of special operations, I have worked with some of the most elite warriors in the world," he said. "This week, I watched Petty Officer Martinez perform at a level that would impress any special operations veteran. She carried a wounded teammate for 3 days through mountain terrain that challenges the strongest operators, then led an assault that demonstrated tactical skills equal to any SEAL I have trained with." The 9 Marines who had participated in the exercise approached Sarah after the debrief. Staff Sergeant Williams, the senior Marine in the group, extended his hand with obvious respect. "I came into this program thinking women in special operations was a political experiment," he admitted. "You proved me wrong. You didn't just keep up with us. You outperformed most of us. That carry you did with Rodriguez was beyond anything I thought possible." The other Marines nodded in agreement, and Sarah realized that she had achieved something even more valuable than official recognition. She had earned the respect of warriors who understood what true excellence looked like. These men had seen combat in the world's most dangerous places, and they were telling her that she belonged among the elite. News of Sarah's performance spread rapidly through military circles. Within weeks, she received orders transferring her to a classified special operations unit, where she would serve alongside the most elite warriors in the American military. The girl who had been mocked for her dreams was now being recruited by the same people who had once seemed impossibly out of reach. Her old high school classmates learned about her success through social media posts and local newspaper articles. Jake Morrison, now working at his father's insurance company and gaining weight from too many office lunches, saw a photograph of Sarah receiving a commendation from a Navy admiral. He remembered the girl he had mocked in the cafeteria and felt a mixture of shame and admiration he didn't quite understand. When Sarah returned home on leave, the town that had once doubted her now celebrated her as a hero. The local newspaper wanted to interview her. The high school asked her to speak to students. And people who had barely acknowledged her existence suddenly wanted to claim friendship with the local war hero. Sarah handled the attention with the same quiet dignity she had shown throughout her military career. During her speech at the high school, she looked out at an auditorium filled with students, teachers, and community members who had once written off her dreams as impossible fantasies. "Some of you might remember when I announced my military goals in this very building," she said with a slight smile. "I was told to lower my expectations, to choose more realistic options, to accept that certain dreams were not meant for people like me. Today, I want to tell you that the only limits that truly matter are the ones you place on yourself." She paused and looked directly at the section where she remembered Jake and his friends used to sit. "To anyone who doubts whether they can achieve something extraordinary, remember that excellence is not determined by other people's expectations. It is built through daily commitment to becoming better than you were yesterday." After the ceremony, Sarah visited her father, who still worked construction but now carried himself with obvious pride when talking about his daughter. Roberto Martinez had kept every newspaper clipping, every article, and every photograph documenting Sarah's military achievements. "I always knew you would prove them wrong," he said, embracing his daughter. "But even I didn't imagine you would exceed your own dreams." Sarah understood that her journey was far from over. The special operations community would continue to present new challenges, and she would face skeptics who questioned whether women truly belonged in the most elite military units. But she had learned something powerful during her transformation from small-town dreamer to elite warrior. The strongest opposition often comes from people who cannot imagine achieving what you have already accomplished. As she prepared to return to her unit, Sarah reflected on the distance between her current life and the girl who had been mocked in a high school cafeteria. The compass her grandfather had given her still pointed toward home, but she now understood that home was not a place. It was the knowledge that she had remained true to her direction, despite every attempt to convince her to choose an easier path. The mockery that had once hurt her feelings now seemed like a gift. Every insult, every doubt, and every person who had told her to lower her expectations had contributed to the unbreakable determination that made her successful. She had learned that true strength is not proven by defeating external enemies, but by refusing to let other people's limitations become your own.